Right, I still need your help. I'm going to let you into a little secret. I keep recording this intro and I cannot work out how to do it. The reason for that, I think, is because it's such a confusing topic for me still, which is why I need your help. This is the M5 iPad Pro. It is the 13-inch version, the big one. I also have the 11-inch M4 version, and just for kicks, the huge Samsung Tab S11 Ultra, which isn't the subject of this video, but I did compare this with this in a previous video, which was quite interesting. The actual topic for today's video is, what is this for? Who is this for? Who is buying the M5 iPad Pro and what are they doing with it? For the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to work that out. I've been trying to work out how I can use it, how I can get the power out of this thing and make it make sense in terms of a purchase. The other purpose of this video is to basically go through some potential use cases. So if you're thinking about buying the M5 iPad Pro or the M4 version, because they're both very, very powerful, but you're wondering whether or not you should just get an iPad Air, or even a regular iPad. Do you need this? That's the big question. So I need your help, guys. I don't know what to do with this, I'll be completely honest. And at the end of this video, I will be asking you, what would you do with the iPad Pro? Does any of that make sense? I have no idea. Let's just get into it. Oh, before I forget, we're giving away an iPhone 17. This one here that I reviewed very recently. It's brand new, don't worry, I didn't damage it or do anything ridiculous with it. It is a pristine iPhone 17. It could be yours. And to find out how to win, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and the newsletter, which is linked in the description down below. We will be drawing the winner within the next few weeks, so go and hit those buttons. Okay, the way that I think I can potentially make the most of the M5 iPad Pro is via music production. This is Logic Pro, which very conveniently opened itself a moment ago. If you weren't aware, Logic Pro it's a music production app. It's been around for eons. I'm that old that I used to use Logic when it was owned by eMagic, and it was on the PC. That was back in the 90s. It was then bought by Apple, I think in the early 2000s, and inevitably the PC version disappeared and it became Mac only. They then ported it over to the iPad, I think, was it 18 months ago? Nearly 2 years ago? It feels like quite a long time ago, but they basically took Logic from the Mac and put it into iPad OS, and they did an incredible job, to the point where this is it's just a very, very exciting platform to make music on. So my thought with this is, let's use the iPad Pro as a music production thing, and that in that way, surely that makes sense as a purchase then. Buying the iPad Pro for me would then make sense. There are some challenges with this. That's the only slight issue. Firstly, yes, you can just take the iPad and make music with it like that. That wasn't the sound I was expecting, but you can play things in on the screen if you want to. You can use your finger to create beats and do stuff on the grid and all that. However, if you're serious about music production, you need some other stuff. For instance, you will want a controller keyboard like this Novation Launch Key Mini. We'll put links to all of this stuff in the description so you can go and check it out if you want to. But yeah, you'll need a proper keyboard to bash things in with. Also, you'll need a pair of wired headphones for two reasons. One, you don't want people to hear your latest hit, obviously, but also they need to be wired because you don't want any latency. That's very important. You'll then need a cable for the keyboard and inevitably a dongle, because the iPad Pro, unlike the MacBook Pro, doesn't have any additional ports over the Air, for instance. If you go from the iPad Air to the iPad Pro, yes, you get a better chip, you get a better display and a few other bits and pieces, but you still get one port, which means to get all this stuff connected, you need a dongle. So what I end up doing is taking this dongle, popping it into there like that, then taking my Launch Key Mini, connecting that there. The headphones, we don't have a headphone jack on the iPad Pro. That would be nice, Apple. A little bit like you added the SD card slot and also HDMI to the MacBook Pro. It would have been lovely to have a version of the iPad, the Pro version, with a headphone jack, but we don't have that. So I've had to get one of these, which is a little USB-C to headphone jack converter, because this dongle doesn't have a headphone jack on it. In fairness, you can get dongles with headphone jacks, but anyway, that goes into there. That then goes into there. Now, luckily, I do have the Magic Keyboard, which is fantastic, and it has a trackpad and a keyboard, which is what you want for proper music production because one, you need to type things in and name tracks and stuff, and two, the trackpad gives you a proper mouse pointer, which is just a bit easier sometimes than using your finger to make music. So I kind of end up with this setup where I've got the keyboard and I've got my iPad and all these cables. Now, taking that on the train, I'm just not that sort of person. I can't do that. And then you look at all this and you just think, I'll just take my MacBook. I'll just go for the MacBook and Logic Pro on there because, okay, I'd still need this, but then I wouldn't need the dongle. It's a bit of a mess, but the stuff that you can do with Logic Pro on the iPad is insane. I'm not going to go into details of all that stuff in this video because that isn't for this channel, really. I will be doing something else on that on a different channel potentially, so stay tuned. The stuff that you can do on here is mad. Apple hasn't done a kind of half, what effort with this. They have completely gone to town with it. It's basically full-blown Logic in iPad OS 26. There are a few things that you don't get in from the Mac version, but it's very, very hard to find them, to be honest. And even the soft synths and all the effects, everything is just as it is on the Mac. It's so powerful. It is a bit tricky to navigate at times. It has a very different navigation system to the Mac version, but once it clicks, you do start to fly around fairly quickly. But the challenge I have with this, like I say, is the level of setup and stuff required to make it work for me. However, I'm not going to give up on it. I am going to continue with this because it does excite me big time. The big question is, what else can you do with this and why would you buy it? Before we get to that, guys, just a very quick word from today's sponsor, which is Paperlike. Paperlike is a screen protector that also makes your iPad display feel like paper. It does exactly what it says on the tin in that regard. Very hard to explain in this video, obviously, but trust me, the first time that you use a Paperlike, when you first get your Apple Pencil and you put it onto the Paperlike screen protector, it is mesmerizing. It's incredible. It feels like paper, it sounds like paper, and it just makes any kind of Apple Pencil activity much more enjoyable, and it protects that screen. It makes sure that your iPad Pro, the expensive thing that you've just bought, is not going to get damaged. And when it comes to putting it on, the Paperlike 3 version, which has just been launched, is even easier than ever. It's always been very simple to put a Paperlike onto an iPad, and trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. But the new application process is utterly superb. It makes getting rid of the bubbles, which I know people are very worried about, very straightforward, and it completely removes any chance of dust ending up beneath the screen protector. Go and check it out. The link is down below. Okay, so my knowledge of how to use the M5 iPad Pro beyond music production ends. I just hit a brick wall. So, as I always do when that happens, I speak to ChatGPT. So it's given me a bunch of potential use cases for the M5 iPad Pro. And what I want to know from you is that you? And does it justify getting this? Because my suspicion is that some of this stuff can still be done with an iPad Air. So the first one is professional creatives, people who are using LumaFusion, DaVinci Resolve, Logic Pro, Lightroom, Capture One. So if you're editing 4K video, for instance, maybe 8K video, who knows, 3D rendering, 3D modeling, photographers using massive RAW files. The point it's making is that because those are very GPU bound and RAM heavy tasks, the M5, it says here, finally makes the iPad a serious tool, which is unfair. It's been a serious tool for quite a long time, but I think you can do all of that stuff with the iPad Air. You can do what I've just been showing you on the iPad Air. Is it the M2 or is it the M3 iPad Air that's out at the moment? That is powerful enough to do the stuff that I'm doing with Logic Pro. I would guess it's the same thing for Lightroom. My assumption is that people who need this are the people who do really intense workflows, so thousands of RAW files potentially, 8K video maybe. You then start to think, wouldn't you just use a MacBook Pro for that? Okay, next up, according to ChatGPT, we have on-the-go creators, which feels the same as the last one, but let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Filmmakers or YouTubers who want to edit and publish their stuff on the road, and DJs, musicians, and podcasters who use Logic Pro for the iPad and have audio plugins that need real-time processing. Basically, it's saying that the extra RAM headroom in this and the neural engine stuff, this has got a better neural engine than the Air and the M4 version. They're saying that those kind of workflows where you need lots of processing happening fairly quickly, the M5 iPad Pro makes sense. And also it says photographers who are dumping lots of photos from an SD card straight into the iPad via USB-C/Thunderbolt and editing them instantly. So if you're out on the road taking photos and you've got your iPad Pro with you, You can very quickly, via a dongle, obviously get stuff into them, get the photos into the iPad and start editing in Lightroom without any delay. I think that's a very good point. And I think out of all of those examples there, it's the photographer one that is the most interesting to me, because that does make sense. You know, if you're out and about shooting stuff, you want to have very limited stuff in your backpack, and this might be a bit more convenient than a big MacBook Pro, let's say, and it still has the power. That's interesting. The other ones, you know, the musicians, podcasters, filmmakers, YouTubers, I think they would have a MacBook Pro. Next up, we have heavy multitaskers and laptop replacers. Here we go. So this is the 13-inch M4 MacBook Air. It's the best MacBook that Apple has ever made. It's my favorite MacBook ever as a result. And whenever I start using the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard and start to enjoy it, inevitably that enjoyment starts to turn into just a deep longing to go back to this, because I just feel more at home with macOS and a traditional laptop. Now, there's a 50-50 split with this, where some people don't agree that this is a laptop replacement. It's its own thing. You know, iPadOS 26 is not macOS 26. It's got a touchscreen. That doesn't have a touchscreen. We should not be calling this a laptop replacement. The other side of the fence says, yes, that's exactly what it is. If you pair it with a Magic Keyboard, it looks like a laptop. I'm with that camp. I think it is a laptop replacement for a lot of people. If you're going to spend as much as you can spend on the M5 iPad Pro, I don't understand why you'd have that and one of these, because I think you're just going to keep hitting that thing that I keep hitting, where you think, I just want my MacBook. My MacBook is easier to use, and then you've wasted loads of money. So I think you have to commit to this. So I think out of all of these things that we're talking about today, people who need a serious laptop replacement, the M5 iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard does make sense. The other one ChatGPT has given me is long-term power users, and I really agree with this. If you buy this today, it will last you 5 years, maybe longer, depending on how long Apple supports it for with iPadOS. Even if you do push it a bit, you're still not reaching the limits of what this thing can do, which means in 4 or 5 years time, you might be. But by that point, you've had this thing for that long and you've not spent any more money on it. You've not had to buy a new iPad. This isn't great for Apple because you're not upgrading, obviously, but for you, it's fantastic because you're technically saving money, kind of, and you're getting a huge amount out of that initial investment. And again, you can spend a lot of money on this thing. So that is a very good thing indeed. I think those last two, the long-term power users and the laptop replacers, the serious laptop replacers, the M5 iPad Pro makes a lot of sense. But who doesn't it make sense for? If you use your iPad for watching Netflix, for emailing, for doing general computery type stuff, and occasionally maybe delving into 4K video editing from family holidays or editing the DSLR photos that you took during that holiday, you don't need an iPad Pro unless you want the better display, the nano texture option, or the more storage that you get from the iPad Pro, and you have the budget for it. I think you can save yourself some money. Just get the iPad Air. You could even look at the base model iPad, which is a fantastic option for a lot of people. The iPad Pro, beyond the kind of fan people like myself who just get it and think it's the best thing ever, I need it, I need to try and work out how to make use of it, I think for most people this is a serious tool. It's a business investment. It's an investment in your productivity, which sounds obvious because it's the iPad Pro, but it's worth reiterating that. And I think also the more I use it, the more I realize I'm so far from being able to make the most of it. Even with music production, my music production, I'm not Hans Zimmer. I'm making very simple productions here, and I could do them on the iPad Air. So as always, this is where I hand this video over to you guys. I want to know in the comments, are you an iPad Pro user? Do you think you use it to its full potential, or do you have a different reason for owning the iPad Pro? Get involved down below, and remember, if you want to win that iPhone 17, subscribe to the channel and subscribe to my newsletter. The link is down below. See you there. See you in the next one.